issues hearing me. This is the beauty of doing things live. I'm trying to do a dozen things at once, as I'm sure you are, one of which I hope is having some coffee as you join us today. Um, and and hopefully you're also, hi Susan, good to see you. Eric, good to see you. Hopefully you are no stranger to the coffee that we're going to be talking about today. It is a coffee that we have been proud to have for a long time with a partner that we've been very proud to work with for a long time. And we'll talk a little bit about why it's such a great relationship for us. And hopefully for you, the coffee drinking fans of Batdorf and Bronson Coffee Roasters. So, what is the coffee? Well, it's a Costa Rican coffee. Lots of folks have heard of the region in Costa Rica that it comes from, Tarrazu. This is from a specific farm and processing center in Tarrazu, and it goes by the name La Minita. So I want to show you the coffee and some of the flavor components that we associate with it when we talk about the coffee. So here's the bag, of course, of the La Minita. And when you look at the flavor notes, what they have decided, as we have decided as we've tasted the coffee, is that it has qualities of maple, orange juice, not orange, orange juice, and almonds as well. I think probably as we look into and discover this coffee, one of the reasons that we talk about orange juice is because of just the unique brightness that this coffee that is achieved in this coffee, right? And that is not necessarily the same as like biting into an orange, right, or directly into the fruit. But there is a difference, really, in the way that the acidity affects the palate when we're drinking this coffee. It also has the lovely quality of nuts. In this case, slightly toasted, I think, almonds. So if you haven't tried La Manita, I really would recommend that you give it a try. I want to talk a little bit about some of the unique aspects of the coffee as I get ready to brew a little bit here. So we'll head over like we do to the website, and I will ask you to always, when you go visit the website and you look under our single origin coffees for the Costa Rica La Minita del Sol, that you open up that detailed coffee report. And the coffee report, again, is that thing that is created by Bob in order to talk a little bit about the relationship and the specifics of the coffee. So in this coffee report, if you were to open it up and read it, what you're going to note is that we talk about the farm where this coffee is grown. And I'm going to show a few photos in just a moment, because I will say I was very lucky to be a part of the Batdorf group that traveled down to Costa Rica in January to see coffees as they were in their harvest, and got to visit with the people who are directly responsible for both the growing of this coffee, and then also, more importantly, its processing. And what's unique about La Manita is they have over 700 acres of farms, of a farm located with growing potential, which is very well developed, which means they have roads cut in and really excellent practices in managing those hundreds of acres of coffee trees. This also means that they've been able to develop really top-of-the-line practices for biodiversity. They've been able to, which means they were able to have certified coffees for shade grown, and it also means that they're using the natural systems to protect the soil and to protect the coffees as well. Those are things obviously which we think are prized, and it's a reason we have a relationship like this, is because of the types of practices right down at the farm level that really matter. If you read through the coffee report, it will also discuss what's unique about this coffee and its processing. Again, another aspect unique for La Manita, somewhat unique is that the farms also have their own processing center. Now that processing center is a what's called a wet mill, and as you've gone through some of these lessons with us, you've been able to probably hear me talk a lot about the different types of coffee. You know that we have coffee that is washed coffee, natural coffee, as well as semi-washed coffee. Now, when we talk about a wet mill, that means that they are prepared to fully wash the coffee. Now, notice when you look at our description of this coffee, it is going to say that it's sun-dried. Now, here's where I need to make a distinction, right? We shouldn't confuse that with natural processed coffees, right? We are actually talking about a point in the processing after the coffee's been washed, where instead of using mechanical dryers, which they have access to and which are sometimes needed just because of when the coffee's picked, where it is in its processing, what the weather's like, right? Remember, when that coffee has been picked as a fresh coffee, it's very important to get it processed and get it cleaned really as quickly as possible, right? And for many reasons. And if the weather's not complying, then you might have to use mechanical drying, right? Or you might have found that the specific coffees that you are processing on that day will do well with the mechanical drying. There really is nothing wrong with mechanical drying, and they're giant, huge. They look kind of like giant versions of the coffee roaster. If you remember the tour we just had with Jim, or if you've been into either our Atlanta or Olympia roasteries, it looks like a big clothes dryer, right? Like a big clothes dryer like you have in your house, right? It's a big drum that circles. Well, the mechanical dryers are the same, but really big and really hot. So that's a perfectly fine way to dry the coffee after it's gone through its fermentation process in the washed method. However, we believe that the additional step of sun drying after fermentation, as opposed to mechanical drying, does add something to this coffee, right? And I just want to be really clear, both completely legitimate ways. However, the sun drying does take a little more care and a little more time, right? Because the coffee has to be put out into the sun, has to be dried in that natural style, which means we need airflow and we need careful cultivation of the coffee. Right? These are the seeds of the coffee. The fruit's been removed. It's been depulped. It's sat in water for the breakdown of the mucilage, and so it still has a lot of water content in there. It's very moist. We put it out into the sun, and you have to manage it really carefully. And this talks to the level of care that the people at La Minita put into the processing of this coffee, and it's along every step of the way. I spoke about the farm management. That's key, right? Getting the right coffee in the right place, managing those trees, doing recirculation of the land and rotating out trees, removing them when it's time to remove them and putting in fresh plants. All of that all happens before we even pick the coffee. Then there's the hand picking of the coffee. I'm going to show some photos in just a second here. And all these steps, step by step, lead to the processing. And then even in the processing, we're going to see here, it takes a little bit more care. Not just in the sorting of the coffee before it's pulped, but then the careful management of that coffee as it goes into the fermentation tanks, and then the additional step of naturally drying the coffee before parchment is removed. So much care goes into this coffee. It's really amazing. So I want to take a moment after we've considered these things to take a look at just I was really lucky again to say I was able to travel to Costa Rica with some co-workers and with Bob to spend some time there in January. And I look like a UPS driver. Well, sure. Maybe I do. It's a Dancing Goats shirt and a Batdorf hat. So thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. This is a view from the hacienda where we got to stay as guests of the farm. You know, beautiful, beautiful environment. This is looking down, really kind of looking over the tops of the farms that slope down from this area. And there's a picture of coffee growing, right? And here we have, look at that. Look at the size of that truck. All of those cherries are picked by hand, right? And I wish I could viscerally explain what it takes to pick this coffee. It is hard work, and it's work that requires the pickers to be choosing the coffee that is ripe. They could even pick some of the overripe, but they can't pick the greens, right? Those have to remain on the trees, and it doesn't all ripen at the same time. Here we are in the tasting lab. And all these photos aren't in order. I had a little problem getting the slideshow set up. I apologize. But this here, again, shows the level of sorting that goes into this specific coffee, right? We have, oopsie daisy. This is the kind of the last place where the coffee is sorted by hand, right? So if a coffee which has a defect or a slight variation that they don't think is going to produce the quality that we need, and it can happen. Remember, you saw that truck full of coffee. It's a lot of coffee, and they're sorting it. And each step of the way, it then comes to this last toucher, which literally is touched by hands again. A hand-picked and a processed and hand-finished coffee all the way through. This is I don't know if I want to show this with you, but this is another aspect of the sorting that happens before that, which is a bed. You can see that it's shaking the coffee, and it's using the different weights and densities of the coffee to sort them out as well. This entire process, occurs all throughout, from the seed all the way to the finished green sitting in bags. Here, every day, La Minita will be testing the coffee as it's coming in, just like we cup coffees when we receive green coffees. And then we also, every day, cup the coffee that we're roasting, right? They will also be taking samples of the coffee that is each single lot of coffee they break down and testing it every day. Sometimes, 20, 30, 40 different coffees, depending on how high the season is. They're setting up that cupping table to check on the quality of the coffee. It's really an astounding process. I spoke about what it takes to get this coffee out of the trees. Here we have the farmers receiving coffee from pickers, filling up that truck all the way to where you saw it almost overflowing. It's the entry to the farms, another view from the farms as well. And this is something I wanted to show you. This is, we talk about the management of the farm. Now, they always have a percentage of the farm that is being kind of reconstructed, right? In which trees can be removed, and land may be allowed to be fallow for a period of time. They have a very intensive mulching program that uses some of the mucilage, or I should say the fruits and the pulpa, reincorporated into soil, as well as other additions. And then they also are constantly producing in nurseries, open air nurseries like this, and some protected nurseries, the next generation of coffee trees. And so here we have, trees being prepared to be replanted in parts of the farm that are being rotated through life cycles. So that was just really beautiful to see all those young coffee trees that one day, if we're lucky, and if we all keep focusing on what we love doing, we'll get to have those coffees from La Minita. Here, Scott is showing us a part of the farm which is area for the workers. There's full-time staff on the farm who do all that management, and they have resources there, a clinic for the workers, as well as housing for some of the workers as well, provided on site. And again, I was trying to get a photo that showed the unevenness of development of the coffee, and something that points back to how the process of working with the coffee starts. Hand selection of the coffee begins right when the picker comes up to the coffee to select it, because the coffee is in different levels of development actually on the trees. So I got carried away with talking with you, and I forgot that I was going to brew this coffee. Classic. So yeah, I think, being in contact with our partners is really important for us. So, I say that Susan here asked how often we visit the farm. So that would probably be a question better answered by Bob, just because he's the one who visits the farms regularly. But every year we do have staff go down and visit. And the reason is we want everyone in the Batdorf organization to have an experience of really seeing up close what coffee production is like. What it takes to produce his coffees. Now this, of course, is just an absolutely perfect example of the level of care and hands-on approach that is needed to create exceptional coffee, and so that's why we get to come down and integrate into that process, right? Because it's really well established, and then because of the aspect of the farm also having the processing built right into it, folks are able to really get right up close and personal with it. I think we could probably have a day with Bob talking more about these issues, and specifically about La Minita, and maybe even bring Scott or someone else onto a conversation to really do a much more detailed slideshow of processing, because I think it's really an aspect of coffee that most folks just don't know about. And we're trying here in this space to give more access to that deeper coffee knowledge. I think the Wednesday shows with Bob reaching down into origin with our farmer partners are part of that. But this would be a great way for you folks who love coffee to start looking at in depth all the steps it takes to get a coffee from a seed that grows to a tree where the fruit is then picked, and then the coffee is processed to create a green bean that we then roast, right? So this is just a taste of that, no pun intended, using La Minita as just a superior example for that process. I would love to have another conversation. Let us know if that's something that interests you, and then I'll reach out to Bob, and we'll work on something a little more in-depth, and maybe reaching right down again to our partners in Costa Rica to have them discuss the process. I think we've had some good success using Zoom to reach down into Central America, so I think we can probably do that if you guys think that would be interesting, right, to take a deeper look at those processing facilities. You'll see that I'm using my Clever dripper, which I do so love. You might have determined, rightly so, that I kind of push the Clever dripper. And the reason I do that is because it allows us to have a fully immersed coffee, right? So the coffee is there in the water, much like a French press. And it also has the element of the paper filter, right? Which is going to kind of lighten the coffee up a little bit. It's going to remove some of those heavier elements that are literally heavier. some of the non-water solubles, some of the lipids, the fats that might, they have their own worth for sure on the palate. But if we can remove them with the paper filtration just a little bit, and some of those fines and that particulate matter, it really cleans up the coffee. And with this example of a Central American coffee that we really prize the brightness of it and the clean finish, I think that's a good method to use, paper filtration, in this case with the Clever Dripper. So, been a pleasure being with you today. I do want to remind you that if you go to our website to try out this lovely La Minita Tarrazu, that you should use the code WatchAndLearn10. You'll see that right here on the screen with me. That allows you to get 10% off of your purchase. I think that's a good thing for you to do. I also think it's good for you to join our Batdorf and Bronson VIP Boosters page on Facebook. If you're watching this on Facebook, you can go over to that page, join there, and we have other special discounts and contests that we run out of that page. So I would definitely like you to go over there and join us there as well. Just ask to join, and there's a few questions to answer, and then you can join that little club that we have going there. And we should also share other resources there too. So I'm going to enjoy this. I want to point out that I have something special that I'm enjoying this with today. I'll shoot down here again real quick. You see here. That's right. Oops, it is. There it is. Oh, no. My Hacienda La Minita mug. Okay. Well, I hope you have a great day. I hope you have a good Tuesday. It's always a pleasure to join folks here and spend a little time talking about coffee, sharing our coffees, a little bit deeper dive into them. I wish I had some pictures from all of our coffee farms and relationships. Maybe one day, we'll see. I'm still trying to get Bob to take me to Africa. We'll see if we can get that to happen. Yeah, I want to say this about this coffee. This is a phrase that Bob often uses, an all-day sipper, for sure. I mean, this is a coffee that can be enjoyed all day long. But I want to tell you, wow, it is especially lovely in the morning, right? So, yeah, it's a great, because of that acidity is so well balanced. It's just really a great coffee. For your first cup, especially if you're using a Clever Dripper or another paper filtration method to make just one nice single cup of coffee. Oh, wow, so good. Folks, tune in for the rest of this week, 9 o'clock shows. We're going to be tomorrow, I believe I'm taking a trip to one of our wholesale partners. I'm still working out some details on that, so we'll do a live show from one of our wholesale partners in Seattle. And then on Wednesday, I believe, Brendan, later in the day, will also be going to some wholesale partners down in his neck of the woods in Florida. On Thursday, we're going to be doing a special show at the 9 o'clock slot, which is about tea. I'm going to be talking with Jeff McIntosh, a friend of mine who is just an awesome tea expert. I'm not going to say tea master because he would probably take exception to that, because he is in the Chinese tea master tradition. He definitely has worked with tea masters. I don't know that he would be uncomfortable for me to say that, but from my perspective, I consider him a master of tea, specifically of pu'er teas. But we're going to talk a little bit about the similarities and the differences between coffee processing and origin, tea processing and origin, and then he's going to lead us through a little tea tutorial as well, and I'll try to follow along to the best of my ability. We're going to be brewing some green tea, so we'll talk a little bit about the things that need to be considered when brewing whole leaf tea at home. So that is what we have for the next few days. I hope you join us here. And again, I really thank you for making time to be with us on these days and for helping us learn together how it is we turn our homes into cafes. Take care.